A $500 fine over a trash bin turned a quiet Sunday into a storm for Ryan and Maggie Holloway. Behind it stood Karen Baxter, a former cop who ruled the HOA with fear and petty power. But when she sent real police to their door, she had no idea every member of that household carried a federal badge. And just wait until you hear the twist that flipped her reign upside down, and how justice came crashing back in the most satisfying way. The Holloway's neighborhood looked like a postcard that morning. Freshly cut lawns, quiet streets, sunlight glinting off white fences. Ryan stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, when he noticed the envelope wedged under the flag on their mailbox. It wasn't the usual HOA newsletter, thick, official-looking, with a harsh red stamp across the front. He tore it open at the kitchen counter. Inside, bold letters screamed back, "Violation, $500 fine. Trash container left out beyond HOA time limit." At the bottom, written in a precise, sharp signature, "Karen Baxter, HOA chair." Maggie leaned over his shoulder, her brow tightening. "You're kidding me. That bin was out for what? 2 extra hours?" Ryan didn't answer. He just folded the letter once, twice, as if reducing its size would shrink the absurdity. By the next morning, another envelope landed on their doorstep. This one felt heavier, not in weight, but in tone. Maggie ripped it open and read aloud, her voice catching. "Failure to pay within 48 hours will result in escalation. The HOA reserves the right to involve law enforcement to ensure compliance." The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the fridge. Ryan's jaw clenched as he set the letter down carefully, like it might ignite if dropped too hard. "She can't be serious," he muttered. Maggie's fingers curled, crumpling the edge of the paper until it crackled. Her voice dropped to a whisper edged with fire. "Oh, she's dead serious." Outside, the neighborhood still looked calm, but inside their house, a quiet line had just been crossed. Karen Baxter didn't see the HOA as a community. To her, it was a command post. She carried herself like she was still in uniform, even though that chapter had ended years ago. People whispered about why she'd left the force, something about excessive tactics and a pattern of complaints. Whatever the truth, Karen had found a new badge to wear, the HOA chair title on every notice she signed. Neighbors had learned quickly that ignoring her was a mistake. A bike left on the sidewalk. Warning, a garden hose not coiled perfectly. Citation, a trash bin left out past sunset. Fine. She didn't just enforce rules. She seemed to enjoy it, using them like a lever to control the quiet suburban street. 2 days after the Holloways had crumpled that second letter, a firm knock echoed through their hallway. Ryan opened the door to find 2 uniformed officers standing stiff on the porch. Their expressions were neutral, almost apologetic, but their presence made the morning feel heavy. "Sir," one of them began, glancing at a clipboard, "we got a call from your HOA. They claim you're refusing to comply with the citation. We were asked to follow up." Behind Ryan, Maggie froze, the grocery bag slipping slightly in her hand. Her voice cracked between disbelief and anger. "She sent cops over a trash bin?" The officer's silence was answer enough. Ryan didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His jaw tightened, his hand resting on the doorframe like it was holding back the weight of his thoughts. Inside his chest, something sharp and steady locked into place. Enough. Out on the cul-de-sac, Karen Baxter stood at the edge of her driveway, arms folded, lips pressed into a thin line of satisfaction as she watched. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the ground shifted under her feet. For a moment, the Holloway's living room felt frozen in time. The officers stood at the doorway, their professional calm beginning to crack under the weight of the situation. Ryan moved without a word, crossing to the hall closet. He reached up to the top shelf, fingers brushing past an old jacket until they closed on a familiar leather wallet. With a quiet snap, it opened. The gold of the U.S. Marshal badge caught the morning light and threw it back like a spark. The air shifted instantly. Maggie didn't say a word. She walked to the kitchen counter, pulled her own wallet from her purse, and set it on the table with a soft, deliberate tap. Her DHS identification card stared up at the officers like a second warning bell. Before either of them could speak, the front door opened again. Tom stepped inside, keys jingling casually in his hand. He took one look at the scene, the uniforms, the letters on the counter, and sighed. Really? He reached into his jacket and dropped a leather case on the table beside Maggie's card. The bold letters at the top read, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The younger of the two officers swallowed hard, and then, as if the moment needed a final punctuation, Aunt Amy, who'd been quietly sitting in the corner, knitting all morning, rose. Without a sound, she pulled a worn badge holder from her sweater pocket and placed it down next to the others. The seal of the United States Secret Service gleamed beside the rest. The officers didn't move. Their eyes flicked from one credential to the next, a dawning realization painting their faces. Ryan closed the wallet in his hand, turned toward the door, and stepped outside. The warm air hit his face, but his voice was cool as steel as he walked toward Karen Baxter, still standing at the edge of the sidewalk, arms folded like a general inspecting her troops. He held up the badge just high enough for the sunlight to catch it. "Congratulations," he said evenly, each word sharp and deliberate. "You just called the police on a house full of federal agents." For the first time since they'd moved into the neighborhood, Karen didn't have a single thing to say. The change came faster than anyone expected. Within days, word of the incident spread through the entire subdivision. Neighbors who had whispered their frustrations for years suddenly found their voices. Petitions were signed overnight. By the end of the week, the HOA board called an emergency vote. When the final count was read, Karen Baxter was no longer HOA chair. She walked out of the clubhouse without the same stiff posture she'd always carried, the weight of her rule gone, and so was her grip on the neighborhood. The stack of complaints she had issued over the years was handed straight to county court for review. For the first time in months, the cul-de-sac felt quiet in the right way. Lawns were still trimmed, kids still rode their bikes, but there was a different kind of order now, one not built on fear. Ryan stood at the edge of the porch, arms folded loosely as he watched their children chase each other across the grass. Maggie stepped beside him, resting her head against his shoulder. The summer air carried a soft calm neither of them had felt since moving in. "Never thought we'd use our badges on a HOA tyrant," Ryan said with a half smile, his voice low enough to keep the moment private. Maggie glanced at the street where Karen used to patrol like a self-appointed sheriff. A small, satisfied smirk tugged at her lips. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the smallest battles feel the best to win." Ryan slipped an arm around her waist, holding her close as the kids' laughter drifted through the evening. For the first time, their home truly felt like theirs.